You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks. Let's talk about Vice President Joe Biden. Happening right now is the National Association of Black Journalists, National Association of Hispanic Journalists virtual convention. Obviously, because of COVID, we were not able to assemble here in Washington, D.C. I'm Vice President Digital on the NABJ board. And today, Vice President Joe Biden spoke to the organization, and folks are raising questions about this comment that he had to make. Check this out.
And by the way, what you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things. Yes, and by the way, what you all know, but most
now, the context of that, they were talking about in terms of what he would do with Cuba. And so folks have been commenting on this whole deal. What is he talking about in diverse? One of the things that he was speaking about there that I've actually said for years that people don't quite understand. Part of the problem in this country, Greg, is when people say African-American and Latino. Well, when you say African-American in this country, you're talking about black people who are from Mississippi, Alabama, Texas. I mean, you can go all around the country. You're talking about people of African descent who are in this country. The difference between Latinos is that point right there. Some places, Greg, they call them Latinos. Some places, they're Chicanos. Some places, they're Hispanics. You have Afro-Latinos, you've got white Hispanics. Then you have individuals who are from different countries. And so as somebody who's born and raised in Texas, Greg, that was one of those things that a lot of people would talk about. They would say, oh, no. When we say Hispanic Latinos, that's, it's all the same. And I kept going, no, it's not. I mean, there's a very different perspective. If you are Dominican from New York City, Cuban in Florida, Mexican in Texas, and then other parts of the country. Your thoughts?
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And you know that, of course, as a son of Texas. Years ago, 15, 20 years ago, I used to tell my students at Howard, I say, you know, you got Felix Trinidad Latinos and you got Oscar de la Hoya Latino. In other words, all Latino means is the language that of colonization. So I said, technically, I would prefer then they call us Anglos. If you're going to do that, I mean, you just talking about the language. But when you start talking about, in fact, I've spent some time in Colorado, maybe about 15 years ago, at the charter school started by Corky Gonzalez, who was one of the leaders of the Azatlan movement, the independence movement. We go in the 1960s, Chicano was used in many ways as a word of empowerment. We're talking going back to the formation of La Raza, right? The race, the big organization that they had. And a lot of the kind of coalition with the Black Panthers and Yellow Peril, which was one of the organizations that Asian communities kind of put together. So that was a very powerful word. Hispanic, of course, as you say, down where you from, you're talking about those Native Americans who were colonized by the Spanish. We would call them Mexicans and others. I mean, you know, they dispossessed the top third of Mexico. But when you say Latino, typically, it usually meant those who were colonized by the Spanish in the Caribbean or closer to the Atlantic. And of course, they are heavily Afro-Latino. So, you know, this becomes a dangerous well, I'll end with this. Joe Biden is grappling with the same language that we all grapple with, which is language which tries to fit us in categories, demographic categories that are then used to weaponize our politics. And as this country becomes majority non-white, and I don't want to use the word majority minority because white people are a global minority, as it becomes majority non-white, I think we're going to see an increasing attempt to use those terms to divide and set at each other's throats these groups of folks who were colonized by the Spanish instead of the English like we were.
The thing there, Reese, when we start talking about this here, obviously people have been commenting back and forth. Folks like, oh my God, Joe Biden, huge gaffe, you're screwing up. I get it. I get how people break that down. But we do have to have this conversation because that's part of the problem. Like for instance, when you talk about Latino, and I purposely always say Hispanic / Latinos because you never know what group you're talking about. you have to deal with the realities that as we become a nation that's called a majority of people of color, you have to deal with this whole notion of white Hispanics. When I was at CNN, it was a trip. This thing came up, and we were on a conference call. Now, mind you, Reese, I'm from Texas. I know white Hispanics. I know people who said, no, I'm white. And I look at somebody else who's like, no, I'm dark-skinned. I ain't white. I'm Hispanic.
Yeah.
So we were on this conference call, and one of the white CNN executives goes, look, folks, we were going over this whole issue of terms. They're like, you know, white Hispanics don't exist. And somebody went, I'm sorry, I'm one. Then the whole call got quiet, and I went, I tried to tell y'all. And so this whole distinction, this whole idea, and so sure, for the Biden team, like you guys sit here and, unpack and try to explain, well, this was the context of the statement. So it's real quick to say, boom, here's this 13-second or 20-second soundbite. But as we're moving towards 2043, you're going to have to deal with this because you just can't group Latinos, Hispanics in the same way you group African Americans. Although we as African Americans, we all think differently. The reality is we don't identify with another country but the United States. Those of us, of course, talk about, Africa. But the reality is when you talk about Hispanics/Latinos, they see themselves, many of them, as, no, not Hispanic/Latino, but Colombian, Mexican, Venezuelan, Dominican. And so even if they are born in America, they also are identifying with their family's home country. Your thoughts?
I have absolutely no issue whatsoever with acknowledging that Latinos, Hispanic communities are completely diverse. They are absolutely not monolithic, and I think it is well worth anybody's efforts to understand how these differences play into perhaps their political affiliations and their decision-making. However, I absolutely do begrudge the notion that Black people are monolithic. Do not mistake the fact that we vote overwhelmingly Democratic as us being monolithic ideologically, with our attitudes or anything like that, because that's just flat out false. I don't understand why there even has to be a juxtaposition. And I understand that Joe Biden is not artful in how he says things. But I'm not just going to give him a free pass because you could have left the whole Black part out of that, okay? You didn't even have to go there about Black people, and you're actually incorrect. No, you don't have, if you're talking specifically African Americans, then no, you don't have Colombian African Americans. You don't have all that. If you're talking about Black people are from all over the diaspora in this country. And so what I want to see from Joe Biden and what I want to see from Democrats is to approach Black people with the same amount of nuance and understand that we do have a different set of motivating factors and desires, and try to, try to better understand that and accommodate that and bring us receipts and bring us policies that actually feed that, instead of saying, I have the Blacks, I have the Black vote for, if you don't vote for me, you're not Black.
But shouldn't we also do, but Reese, shouldn't we also do that as well? Because here's what happens. We talk about the Black agenda. In fact, in about 10 minutes, we're going to have Ice Cube on, and he has a contract with Black America. Well, what does it actually mean? Then when folk talk about Black churches, Black church, Kojic ain't the same as AME, which is not the same as a Black United Methodist Church, was not the same as a Black Catholic Church, was not the same as a Black Baptist Church. And hell, within Baptist churches, you got Progressive National Baptist, you've got National Baptist Convention USA, Full Gospel Baptist Fellowship. And so this is where also I think that we have to also make those distinctions and force people to see us not simply as one group.
I completely agree. And that's why I've been saying the entire time I've been on your show that we need to be making demands, and that we need to be demanding that people bring receipts to us. We should not be allowed to be treated and taken for granted as the mules of the Democratic Party. We should be allowed to state, and actually we shouldn't even be having to give this education in 2020 that Black people are not monolithic. There's a whole ass Smithsonian that gives you a very good idea about the breadth and the depth of the Black experiences in this country. And so, yes, Black people sometimes approach each other with the lack of nuance nuance and a lack of respect for our different, experiences. And even you have like the ADOS, which is sometimes hostile to Black immigrants and things like that. There are a lot of different undercurrents in our own communities, but I just do not accept anybody trying to in any way suggest that the Black community is monolithic, despite the fact that we do monolithically vote for Democrats when we vote. But there's a whole 50% of Black people that don't even vote. And why is that? Because somebody is not meeting their needs, and somebody is not recognizing for them the way that Democrats are aiming to recognize, well, what do Cubans want versus Colombians versus Dominicans versus Mexicans and versus all of these other groups. If somebody put that same effort towards the Black community, you might not see 50% of Black people staying at home and not voting for either party.
Erica.
Yeah, I completely agree with Reese. And then to think about, all of the efforts and all of the gains that we've seen in this American experience has been for the blood, sweat, and tears of Black people, those groups that have allied with us. But it has been Black blood, it has been Black torture, it has been Black trauma, it has been Blackness that has moved this country forward. And so I definitely do agree. And I also do say that, because we are spending so much time fighting so many different parts of institutional racism, that when you have groups that are able to flex between white and whatever their demographic is, being Black means that we are 100% Black. We don't go home and take the suit off and or enter into a place of employment literally. There are people that do that figuratively, but we cannot take our skin off. Our skin is our skin. We're recognized Black wherever we go. And so to that point, as Biden continues his campaigning efforts, that a conversation continually needs to be had with him around the way that he definitely approaches and talks at our community, because he was not, in fact, talking to our community.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Ceek.com. They've got these great virtual reality headsets right here. All you do is pop your cell phone right into here, and then you can watch the content, the virtual reality content on their website, Ceek.com. You can also watch videos in 360 degree, and so this is what that particular headset is. And then, of course, they have these great headphones here, these Ceek.com headphones. Mira Spio is a sister from Ghana. She, of course, is the inventor of these 360 degree 4D sound, unbelievable. Gamers love these headsets. The bass is off the chain. Of course, it has a microphone where you can also speak, Bluetooth as well. And so you can also use that for conversations, for music, for videos, whatever you want to use. And so you get to of course get a discount because you watch Roland Martin Unfiltered. Use this promo code right here, RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020 when you go to Ceek.com, CEEK.com. And so we want you, of course, to support the Black-owned companies that also support what we do here at Roland Martin Unfiltered.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends, go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have, you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it. Please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.